So we wanted to just start out by doing a brief overview of who we are and where we are and what we're up to. Really, in the last 2 or 3 years, we have seen some remarkable growth as an organization. We now have offices in all three vicariates of the Diocese of Richmond, so in the East, the Central, and far Southwest Virginia. Our organization is organized into 5 departments that really break down depending on the kinds of populations that we're serving, but we offer over 33 ministries all across the diocese. We work through 11 locations in the Commonwealth, and of course our mission is to provide those quality and compassionate services to the most vulnerable, regardless of faith. We help people from moms who are struggling with crisis pregnancies and their babies, all the way up to aging seniors, helping them make sure that they can age in place and ultimately die with dignity. So we are all across the spectrum of life here at Commonwealth Catholic Charities, and we certainly make a huge impact in the lives of the people that we serve. And so to talk a little bit about that impact and what we were able to do last year, these numbers are hot off the press. We saw nearly a 3-fold increase this year of clients accessing our eviction prevention and financial assistance resources. A lot of that has to do with the pandemic. We saw increases in individuals accessing our housing counseling, our workforce development services, and nearly 118 youth experiencing housing instability or homelessness were provided with food, clothing, and other support to help them maintain permanent housing. Our street outreach services, we'll talk a little bit about those in the future or in the next hour, but over 1,300 individuals in Eastern and Central Virginia were identified and supported through our street outreach program. That's double the number that we served last year. And twice the number of refugee clients were supported in our employment services this year as opposed to last year. And finally, really the financial and the health impacts of COVID-19 and the ongoing pandemic resulted in 2 brand new services. One was the rent relief program. We'll talk a little bit about that, as well as the non-congregate shelter here in Richmond. So overall, all across the diocese, we supported over 42,000 individuals this year. We simply have a huge impact, and we really couldn't stress enough that we couldn't do that work. We couldn't have that impact without the support of people like you. We put that together. Really, we wanted to give, you all our most tried and true supporters a sense of, what our clients are saying to us as a result of the services that we provide them. So we thought that those thank you messages were really best directed towards you, because without you, there's our work just simply wouldn't be possible. So again, thank you so much. We wanted to get into a couple of kind of the big ticket items that we've been working on this year, just to kind of give you an update of where we've been before we kind of take a break for Q&A and then move into where we're going next year. I mentioned the rent relief program, which is really a brand new service that we were selected to participate in. One of the things that separates Commonwealth Catholic Charities from some similar organizations and all across our diocese is just simply the geographic reach that we have. So we have, of course, our offices in Newport News, Richmond, Petersburg, Charlottesville, Roanoke, and far southwest Virginia, in a town called Norton. And through the network of our housing counseling department, we're really able to have a very, very deep reach into all those communities. So when the Commonwealth of Virginia was trying to figure out how to deploy rent relief for those individuals who were struggling, potentially facing eviction or a utility disconnection as a result of COVID-19, we were asked to become a part of a collaborative with some of our partners throughout the state, mostly legal aid centers. And so we're now a part of a large group that's been charged with spending upwards of $5 million in rent relief all across the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we're very excited to be a part of this program. It's something that started back in the summer and it's recently been extended. So we're certainly always looking at new opportunities to provide this assistance. Our focus is really to target minority communities who are not able to complete the online application, really due to the lack of internet access or having some of those language barriers. So it's really the double complement of our geographic scope, as well as our position as a long-standing immigrant services provider, really through our refugee resettlement program and some of the work that we do in our foster care department. They really put us in I think a unique position to be able to provide this service to the population that the Commonwealth really wanted to target. So right now we're operating through December 31st of 2021. We hear rumors swirling all the time, and we do anticipate that this program will be extended into 2022, and we're excited to be a part of the collaborative to bring this service into the new year. I think next we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the work that we've been up to in our homeless services. I guess it was right at the beginning of the pandemic, we relocated our homeless services office from a place that we had right up near VCU here in Richmond down to the Chaco Valley in Chaco Bottom. Really the idea there was that we as an organization were making a strategic decision to try to identify those individuals who really weren't connected with any other service provider. We wanted to cast ourselves really to ensure that we're reaching out to the individuals who really need our assistance the most. So we started that here in Richmond, and we've extended it to other locations really across the diocese. So in Richmond, in Petersburg, and in Eastern Virginia, really focused in Chesapeake and areas of Western Tidewater, we really are a street outreach provider. We're going out into the community, identifying people who are sleeping in places that really aren't meant for human habitation. So abandoned buildings, sleeping in parking lots, sleeping under bridges, and engaging with those people so that we can find ways to connect them with services. I mentioned kind of in the introduction that we saw more than twice as many individuals through street outreach this year, and we've really doubled down on the number of times that we're reaching out with folks. And we find that oftentimes just through building that relationship, building the trust between ourselves, our programs, and the people that we're trying to do the outreach to, we can actually bring people, engage them in services, and ultimately move them directly into permanent housing. I think this quote here from Jacob, our program manager, really says everything that we feel, which is just knowing that there are kids outside is the thing that really drives us to say we want to go into the places and find the people who aren't connected to other services so that we can provide the support essential to move people into permanent housing. We're going to talk a little bit about the non-congregate shelter program that we've recently taken on in a couple of minutes, but was there a question? Oh, that's okay. So we'll get there. So wanted to tell, there was a brief story here. So there was we're working collaboratively with a number of housing developers here in town, and there was a partner who reached out to us. They're about to clear a site, and they noticed that there was a tent encampment in there. So in that encampment, there was a family with, I think, 3 or 4 generations in it. There was a mom, a dad, an aunt with a boyfriend, and 2 small children. It was a very, very unsafe situation. The kids weren't enrolled in school. One of the children was in a cast and is moving around in a wheelchair. And so our street outreach team was made aware of this family. And we were very, very quickly able to assess the situation, move the aunt, her boyfriend, and the 2 small children into our non-congregate shelter program. Both of those kids are now in school and are working with one of our partners on moving into an apartment unit through a rapid rehousing program. This kind of outreach is something that we're uniquely able to do. And we have relationships really all across, not just the Richmond area, but also Petersburg and down in Chesapeake, to make sure that these folks who really are, the most vulnerable have access to the services and the care that they need. Our counseling department is just another area that has really, shown a tremendous amount of resilience throughout the pandemic. We were very, very, prior to the pandemic, we of course were, in our offices and relied on people coming to us. And the pandemic has really shifted our program to not just operating in person, but also adding some telehealth components. In far Southwest Virginia, we have a unique opportunity to connect some of the children in our foster care program with a counseling intervention that's uniquely designed for children who have experienced trauma, abuse, and neglect. So this quote here from the counseling client in Norton is actually a young man who came into care as a result of actually witnessing some just tremendous trauma. His father actually killed his mother in front of him, and he came into our care. He was terrified, had immense difficulty making relationships, and through this counseling intervention was really able to start to put the pieces of his life back together. And the support of the foster care program, in addition to the mental health counseling that we were able to deploy through our VOCA grant out in Norton, was actually absolutely life-changing, and really got this young man back on track. Of course, the thing that's been all over the news lately is the work that we've been doing in response to the evacuation of Afghan citizens and their arrival here in the Diocese of Richmond at one of the bases. But of course, what we're ultimately preparing for is the arrival of these individuals and families from the bases into our communities, into Richmond, Roanoke, or Newport News. When we first started to hear about what was coming, we reached out to the community and said, we need your support. We need to build capacity. We need to make sure that we're prepared to not just, provide the basics and the essentials for the people who are on the bases, but also make sure that we're prepared to fully integrate a new generation of people into our communities here in Central, Eastern, and Western Virginia. And so again, we just can't say enough that we couldn't be prepared without support of people like you. Here you can see kind of in the bottom right there, we've just had a complete outpouring of support. People have been, buying those items on our Amazon wish list faster than we can put them back up on there. So one of the things that we've heard is we need to pay extra attention to the Amazon wish list to make sure that there are continued opportunities for the community to support us. We have tremendous partnerships, all across the diocese and the communities that we serve. The top right there, that's in our Newport News office. The Newport News Police Department really came through, making sure that we had access to a number of items for some recently arrived families. And of course, our long-term partners at the diocese are always tremendously supportive of the ministry. And so here, the superintendent of schools is helping us make a push to get the Catholic schools more involved in both our pregnancy clothes closet in this picture, but they've just been instrumental in making sure that the students are involved in the refugee resettlement effort. So again, we just can't thank the community enough for making sure that we are prepared to respond to the ongoing crisis presented by the evacuation of the Afghan citizens and their arrival here in Virginia. So that's I think a high level look of some of the big ticket items that we've been working on and some of the big differences that we've been able to make. We wanted to pause here for a minute. I don't know if anything came through in the chat or if there are any questions about any of those things that we just covered, whether it's the rent relief program, some of the homeless services efforts that we've undertaken, the counseling department, or even the Afghan resettlement effort. Would love to answer any questions that anybody has. Feel free to take yourself off mute.
Hello, Jay. This is Fred Nellen. Could we ask a question?
Yes, please.
Hey, I love the. First of all, congratulations on all of your important initiatives. The community outreach was particularly interesting, though. Any chance you can give a couple of details on the actual engagement process that you were speaking about?
Sure.
Thank you.
So, we'll conduct outreach really based on a number of things that can trigger the outreach. So one, we go out to places where we just kind of know that folks are positioned. So, that's, a lot of times, Walmart parking lots, are places that are safe spaces for people to sleep in cars if they're not connected to a service provider. And also there are just some known encampments. And so what our effort is we just go and make ourselves available. We typically try to, if there's a person that we haven't met before, we have never engaged before, we'll bring, items, water, snacks, personal care items, really to make sure that the whole effort is try to build rapport and build relationships. Oftentimes we find that people have elected to stay outside rather than try to engage with service providers because of the number of barriers that they've experienced historically when they've tried to come into a shelter environment. A lot of times here in Greater Richmond, and I think this is the same story in other communities across Virginia, that capacity in our shelters and in our homeless services systems just far is not doesn't meet the demand for those services. So when people have tried to access services and they maybe can't get into a shelter or they can't get access to the thing that they need, they'll elect to go outside. So our effort, again, we'll go out, we'll bring personal care items. Our hope and our effort is to build rapport. And I think over time, when people get the sense that we really are interested, we actually do care about them, we care about their story, we care about finding an intervention that works for the individual, they're a lot more open to engaging over the long term. A lot of people who we serve meet the definition, the federal definition of chronically homeless. So those are people who are outside for extended period of time and also have a disability. Oftentimes that disability is related to mental health concerns or substance use issues. Oftentimes those dual diagnoses are related as well. And so what we try to do is bring resources to those folks rather than trying to encourage them to come to us. So we'll partner internally with our own counseling department to make sure if we need to get a diagnosis for a person before we can get them into a day program, we'll try to be able to provide that diagnosis on the street so that we don't have to set up appointments and worry about people getting lost in the mix. So really the intervention can look very different depending on the individual or if it's a family. If there's a family and there are children involved, oftentimes we'll try to bring partners from the school system to see how we can get kids engaged in the school systems. So it really is something that we can tailor to the unique needs of the individual. I think the big piece for us is understanding what those needs are. And that's why we go to people and just try to ask folks what's going on and how can we be supportive.
Very impressive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred.
Jay, let me ask a question. Nick Lucas here.
Hey, Nick.
Is there any engagement with police to identify, for instance, chronically homeless, but perhaps criminally inclined or mental health kinds of situations?
Yeah. So we have tremendous partnerships with, Richmond Police and Rico Police and Newport News Police have been super supportive, of our refugee programs. But mostly here in Richmond, the Petersburg Police have also been high on our list of people to engage with here as we've expanded those services down into the Crater region. The Richmond Police Department actually has a dedicated unit that are there to help with outreach to people experiencing homelessness. Oftentimes they're called in for enforcement reasons, and the benefit of having them as a part of our team is that they can, if they're called in for enforcement, they can come and pick up one of our staff and bring them to the engagement to make sure that we're dealing with some of the underlying issues insofar as we're able. The other component that we're able to link up with is oftentimes the crisis intervention of our behavioral health systems, so that if there is somebody who has having an acute behavioral health concern, we can connect people immediately into the crisis response system, rather than trying to go through a period of incarceration to kind of get there. So our police departments have been very supportive ever since we've kind of been on the scene, trying to get them to come out and visit encampments with us. Oftentimes we know that the police are called to those encampments. So that's kind of the first place that we go when we're going into a community to say, where can we find people, is to our partners in the police department.
Hi, Jay. This is Susan Anders.
Hey, Susan, how are you?
We are so grateful for your presentation here in Virginia Beach at Ascension Church that you did last month
That was a blast.
on immigration services. It was a blessing. And I guess I would just ask you for an update on how the folks are flowing from the forts to those areas. You mentioned Newport News, Richmond, Roanoke. And when will it be time to engage with them as far as either services or more supplies, or how can we be part of the solution?
I love it. So we have one other question, and then I think our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about the Afghan situation and how people can become more involved. So if I could pause you for 2 seconds.
Sure.
And we'll get on that one in a minute. But I think Miss Catherine had another question too.
Yes, Jay, this is Catherine Black. I'm with the leadership group for the Giving Garden at Our Lady of Nazareth. And it's in Roanoke. Well, maybe you don't know, obviously, but we are high production and we donate everything we grow to either St. Francis or the Ram House. I'm particularly interested in the Youth Hub Garden project. Can you outline that a little bit more?
Sure. So our Youth Hub is a project that we started in partnership with a number of entities here in Richmond. So the Youth Hub was designed to be a dedicated place for young people between the ages of 18 and 24 who are experiencing housing instability to come to present and to receive services that were tailored to their unique needs. One of the things that we realized was that roughly about 10% of the people who were seeking homeless services were between the ages of 18 and 24. So they were in these young people. Oftentimes they were emancipating from foster care, or they were, when the dorms closed at VCU and they had to go home and they had no place to go, or just because of, living in a family that's struggling, had to kind of go and make their own way when they turned 18. They wind up in some challenging situations. So 10% of the people seeking homeless services are between this 18 to 24-year-old age group. But when we looked at the numbers of people who are actually receiving services, whether from one of our homeless shelters or one of our housing providers, we learned that the participation rate was less than 2%. So there was just a huge gap in how people were showing up and requesting services and how people were receiving them. And I think when you think about how we try to allocate our resources, I think a person who has been sleeping outside for 10 to 15 years, I think is going to wind up prioritized more than somebody who may be experiencing homelessness for the first time. That's just the unfortunate reality of living in a world where the capacity just nowhere near meets the need. But we realized that there needed to be a targeted intervention for this group. And really our concern comes out of our experience as a child welfare provider. We were a longstanding foster care provider. Of course, we were founded, to provide adoption services and pregnancy counseling. So we really wanted to figure out how could we serve this population. So the Youth Hub was developed as a place for people to go. And then the idea was that we would engage that group of people to say, how can we serve you better? So one of the things that we heard loud and clear was that we needed to make our spaces, therapeutic in and of themselves and provide more activities. So the garden has become really a place for people to go and just relax and just be in a beautiful space. And that has just been a terrific benefit for our team. And then our staff actually were the people who started the garden, and they were actually able to engage some of these young people in tending for the garden and caring for the garden. It was just another way that we could engage kind of the creative side of some of our clients and making sure that they stayed as a part of kind of the service that we were looking to provide. We love that program. And So we're very, fond of everything that Nazareth is doing, particularly at your garden, and we're very grateful for. I think we had those freezers that we got through the, Roanoke Valley Gives, and they were filled, I think, the next weekend because of y'all's efforts. So it's just awesome the way that you've enabled us to be able to provide more capacity of fresh foods rather than the canned items that typically come through USDA. But having something, where the people that we're serving can actually kind of, roll up their sleeves has both been, I think, therapeutic in itself for the individuals, but it's also been an extra way that we've been able to engage with people and have a better understanding of what their needs are. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. There we go.
Yes.
That mute button's tough sometimes, but I appreciate it.
I still can't figure it out myself. I'm lucky tonight that I'm doing most of the talking, so I just stay on.
Jay, who would I contact for more information about this?
You can contact any member of our team here. Jess, Marnie might be there as well.
I've got them on the list. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think
Excellent.
all of our contact information will be at the last slide if we make it.
Excellent.
And Catherine, I'll chat you my direct email in line.
Thank you, Jessica.
No problem.
Excellent.
So wanted to talk about kind of, as long as there are no more questions, we can move into the exciting happenings with our continued efforts to aid the people who are going to be staying here in Virginia. So if you haven't heard from us yet, you will soon. Thank you for your patience. More broadly, even outside of the Afghan effort, our refugee services are going to be extremely busy this year. So the presidential determination came through, and we anticipate, in the United States, welcoming over 125,000 refugees. That's up from about 12,000 just 2 years ago. So we're really, going from 0 to 60 in what feels like, however fast a very fast car can make that journey. The minimum number of refugees that we anticipate serving in each of our offices is up there on the screen. In addition to these numbers, we will have 545 additional individuals who are coming through the Afghan, as a result of the Afghanistan evacuation. Just for context, and this is something that we've been telling people, is that in the first 3 quarters of our fiscal year 2021, we resettled, I think, 86 individuals in all 3 of our offices. And just in the last month and a half, we've resettled 144. So we're starting to see the volume really tick up. And really for us, it's a matter of making sure that we can sustain the capacity to serve all the individuals that start coming through our door in the very, very near future.
Okay, Nick Lucas, you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, of course, before in regards to possible non-Christians and any outreach may be able to do to some of those religious organizations, give us a hand.
Yeah, so really exciting. Next week at the Commonwealth Club, I'm speaking to the club alongside the imam here from the Islamic Center of Virginia, which is based here in Enrico. And we've been doing some strategic outreach to mosques that are placed in central and southwest, in eastern Virginia, forgive me. So there are established communities here in all 3 of our localities where we have offices of Afghan and people of Afghan descent. Of course, we've been resettling people from who have been coming to the United States in the SIV program, the Special Immigrant Visa Program, since 2006. So we have connections in those local communities, both from people that we've resettled as well as other folks who have immigrated here. So we have those terrific connections, and we're making them, which is just tremendous. Those folks are reaching out to us to make sure that they can be a part of our effort. I think Miss Billy had a question.
Hey, Jay, this is Billy Keating. Just to make the connection, I'm from St. Patrick's. We met many, many years ago. So it's so nice to see you again.
You as well.
But I'm working with the Central Virginia Sanctuary Network and have reached out and connected with Kathleen for several conversations, and also Emila regarding English as a second language classes. So I'm working primarily right now with a family from Rwanda who is seeking asylum.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to get them established in the community is what I've been doing, getting their children in school and just reaching out to all different resources, wonderful resources that we have here in Richmond, and trying to get them taken care of a little bit. I guess my question is regarding them, but also on a larger scale. They did connect with Arthur regarding ESL, but unfortunately everything is online. And they're temporarily staying in a hotel before they get to a temporary, permanent kind of housing situation. And I'm wondering, what's your best guess about in-house, in-person ESL for the Afghans who are here, plus anybody else that needs it, who's just arriving in Richmond?
Yeah, I think that our refugee programs in each office have been making decisions about bringing people back in person, depending on, what we're seeing on the ground here. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, about whether or not the realities of the pandemic are going to allow us to kind of bring people back in person. What we have been trying to do for those individuals who don't have the technological capacity to connect with our online programs is to try to provide some of that targeted technological support, either through helping with a donated computer and some kind of a tutor relationship where we can try to help people connect in a way that is safe given the circumstances that we live in. The challenge that we have, depending on the office environment that we're located in, is whether or not we can keep people at the safe social distance, while at the same time being in one of our offices. So I know that Abu and his team have had a couple of conversations about doing some things offsite in places that could allow us to do some larger gatherings, but then it becomes a question of how do you get people to a place that may not be accessible to public transportation? And then of course, how do you make sure that you can get a critical mass of people in the same place at the same time to kind of make sure that everybody can engage in that effort. So it really has been a tricky time to be able to do anything that we would normally do in a group setting. And that's something that we've seen across the board, is that our group numbers have unfortunately declined because most of our group interventions are being deployed over the internet. So to be honest, I don't have a good answer for you of when we expect to be back in person. Our hope is that as the cases continue to decline, we are able to welcome people back, as long as we're able to maintain the safe social distancing and be able to keep the masks.
Right. Thank you for addressing that. I'll just stay in touch with Emila as things progress.
I think that's the best answer.
Okay.
Thanks, Billy. So to talk a little bit about some of the housing and homeless services that we've been up to here in Richmond, and that these are kind of two big things that are fairly new to us. So just on August 1st, we took over what's known as the non-congregate shelter for the Greater Richmond Continuum of Care. So tonight, we are sheltering, I think, 229 individuals, including over 100 children under the age of 18. We're doing that in a hotel that we are partnering with down in Southside here in Richmond. Really, the idea here behind the non-congregate shelter is that there are individuals, whether due to their family situation or due to underlying medical conditions or their advanced age, it's just not safe for those individuals to be in a congregate shelter environment. So what we're trying to do is make sure that every person who is at heightened risk to contract COVID-19 is able to receive safe overnight shelter, meals, connections to services, and all the rest in a safe environment. So we were uniquely positioned to take this on. There was no other provider in Central Virginia that came forward willing to do it. And so, we stepped forward and said, we're happy to provide this critical service for people in need. So this has just been a tremendous effort that we started just in August, and we've kind of really expanded the service and really made sure that it's pointing people towards permanent housing. The other piece that we're really excited to put right alongside the non-congregate shelter is also an inclement weather shelter. Historically here in Greater Richmond, in non-pandemic times, there are roughly 200 to 250 people who sleep outside every single night because there isn't capacity within the year-round homeless services system to support them. So we have partnered with the city of Richmond over the last several years to provide an inclement weather or a cold weather shelter. We've really changed the way that this shelter is going to work this year and moving forward. The long-term plan is actually to build out a section of our facility at 809 Oliver Hill Way to provide support for between 100 and 150 individuals on any night where the temperature is either too cold for people to be outside or too hot for people to be outside. In the cold weather months, we'll be operating every single night. And as soon as we move into our facility on Oliver Hill Way, we will operate 24/7. And so that will mean for the first time ever in the city of Richmond, at any time of day that an individual is experiencing a housing crisis, they can present and receive services that are necessary to keep them safe and off the street. So we're very, very excited about that. We think it's going to really change the way that services are provided here in Richmond and the surrounding communities. And we think that together between the inclement weather shelter and the non-congregate shelter, we really will have for the first time in Greater Richmond, every single person, a resource for anybody who needs it, which is just a tremendous opportunity to start moving people beyond shelter and into permanent housing. And then to kind of move from shelter to really what is the answer, we have been doing a tremendous amount of work to get our housing corporation up and running. So we noticed really across all of our services and across the locations that we serve, permanent housing was often one of the most critical needs of the people that we serve. And it was also oftentimes the answer to so many of the underlying challenges that people face. So we started our housing corporation and we brought a small group of people together to help us think through how we as Catholic Charities could leverage the resources that we had to expand capacity and provide additional affordable housing units in the communities that we serve. So our very first independent or solo project that we've been working on is we have affectionately called St. Elizabeth's Apartments. And you see here a rendering of what this community will look like. It consists of 56 units of affordable housing in Northside Richmond. And it's coming together as a partnership between Commonwealth Catholic Charities Housing Corporation, St. Elizabeth's Catholic Church, and the Catholic Diocese of Richmond. So the key components to this is there's some surplus property on this site where it used to house a Catholic school that was demolished, unfortunately, about 5 or 6 years ago. And so the diocese and St. Elizabeth's reached out to try to see if we could do something mission-oriented on the site that could also help St. Elizabeth's achieve some of their own goals due to the growing nature of the parish. So we're just very, very excited about this. We think it's going to meet a huge need for affordable housing here in Richmond once we start to see this come out of the ground, which we hope will actually be sometime in 2023. But this year we think is the year that we get the deal done. So we're very excited to move it forward and see it come to fruition. And then finally, this is something that has become, very near and dear to my heart. I do have to give a shout out to Ellen and Fred Gortler. I think, I think the idea or the ideation stage as we kind of developed this project, which has been called Seton Housing, really came out of a number of conversations with Ellen and Fred, and we're just really excited to start to see it have a tremendous amount of success. So Seton Housing, our goal is to provide expectant and new mothers experiencing homelessness with safe and stable housing. We're doing this really for 2 reasons. One is to provide, women who would choose to parent or would choose to make an adoption plan if only they had, stable housing and life-affirming resources while they're working through an unexpected pregnancy. Our pregnancy counseling resources have been a part of Commonwealth Catholic Charities since our founding nearly 100 years ago. And recently we started to see a number of young moms come to us in housing crises, while at the same time trying to figure out how to put the pieces together to make a parenting plan or an adoption plan. So we just think this is a terrific way to support those moms. The other thing is that we really, as we kind of looked into, some of the needs of, pregnant women who are experiencing housing instability and homelessness, we started to really understand, how much greater risk there was for a pregnant woman who is experiencing a housing crisis to experience extremely negative pre and postnatal health outcomes. So I think it's unstably housed women are 60% more likely to have long hospitalization stays after delivery, 170% more likely to visit the ER within 3 months of giving birth, all as a result of the stress that comes along with being unstably housed. So our plan here is to provide scattered site interventions and a permanent supportive housing resource for these moms. And then, of course, double down with access to a range of supportive services to make sure that moms have everything that they need, not just to bring their baby to term, but to really thrive as new families moving forward. So this is just a tremendous project. I think right now we're supporting 3 or 4 women in housing. We have a couple of more who are in the pipeline. Our plan initially was to serve 5 women in a pilot project. We're about to hit that goal. And the big benefit here is that we're not necessarily concentrated in any one area of the diocese, but we're really able to do this diocesan-wide. And it's a great way that we've developed to engage with parish communities and with other groups who want to be supportive of these moms. So just a terrific program. Again, I have to give all the credit to Fred and Ellen for the idea, but we're really excited to make it a reality. So with that, that's kind of another set of highlights of things that are coming down the pike. We've got, of course, working with individuals who are coming to us from Afghanistan. We're continuing to push the ball up the hill with refugee resettlement in general. Our housing corporation is hard at work, and hopefully we'll start to see some projects come out of the ground here in the near future. Our homeless services programs are super active. And then the Seton Housing piece is going to become more and more a part of how we're really looking to serve communities and really start to move and create some new interventions within a 100-year-old program. So it's just an exciting time to be here at Catholic Charities. And if anybody has any questions, any more questions about any of those things, please jump in. Let us know.
Hey, Jay, it's Billy again. So do you have any indication if you're going to be helping the Haitian migration when that starts coming through? I'm not even sure where they're coming through, from the border, where they're being sent to.
Sure. Well, so those folks mostly have been released. So for those individuals who are released, those people released into the country and will be making their way to wherever they head. I think that they'll be processed again through an asylum processes. The general asylum process, what we hear is taking up to 2 years to fully run its course. Once people receive asylum status, that's when we can provide resettlement services for them. So we would anticipate that any number of those individuals who came to Virginia because of a connection that may have been previously established either in Haiti or through a family member who's immigrated here over the years. Once that person has received their asylum status, they're welcome to walk into our door. And we would then kind of move forward, find the housing, and do all the things that we would do with any refugee family. So again, that's one of those situations that we really don't have an easy way to predict or to forecast how much of that we'll see just because of the nature of the asylum process.
Anyone else? No, there's nothing in the chat.
Well, all right. So we wanted to leave you with a wonderful success story. So Kirsten here, this is the first mom that we housed in our Seton Housing program. So Kirsten came to us. She was in an unstable relationship. She was bouncing between couches at friends and family members. didn't have a place to go, and she came to our pregnancy counseling service seeking support. We were able to move her into housing. We were able to actually, prior to delivery, we actually had her connected with an employment opportunity that's allowed her to work from home. And since her baby girl was born in early August, she's really been able to kind of take steps to really move forward to make sure that this family is thriving in Greater Roanoke, actually. So we're just super excited to be able to be a part of this mom and this family's life. It's something that just wouldn't have been possible without the tremendous support of community members like you all, and especially, again, Ellen and Fred. We can't thank you enough for really being a part of thinking through this project and how we can provide this support to really moms across the diocese. So we're really excited to see this program grow into the future. And we can't wait to see more babies, more success stories come out as our effort here. So again, just a tremendous effort. Thank you all so very much for your support. I think the last couple slides, how you can support us. We always want to put a plug in for our holiday festival of music. It's turning 30 years old. You can buy tickets to an in-person live concert right here at the Cathedral of the Sacred Heart, or you could even watch our concert from the comfort of your own home with our virtual event. We're having both options again this year. Of course, we're always in need of financial support so that we can continue to make a difference in the lives of the people that we serve. And then finally, volunteering is always a tremendous way to support our mission. And last, here are some community events that will be happening here throughout the various communities that we work in. We have a refugee art show. I think this was a tremendous idea that Marty Mills got pulled off in Roanoke. The Taubman Museum of Art is going to host some art from refugee students that have come through our program. It runs from November 5th till November 19th. So anybody in the Roanoke Valley can head over to the Taubman Museum and check out the Refugee Art Show. I mentioned the Holiday Festival of Music, always a tremendous way to kick off the Advent and Christmas season. We have a traveling art show here in Richmond that highlights the work of young people in our foster care program. So the Pine Camp Cultural Arts Center in Northside will be hosting Through the Eyes of a Foster Child. Now, I believe it's up now, all the way through October 29th. And then finally, I Give Catholic, or Giving Tuesday, happens on Tuesday, November 30th. And you can check out all the fun things that we are promoting on our website there at I Give Catholic. And so the last thing that we have is our contact information. You can always reach out to me. There's my direct line, my email. Jess is also always available. The only person I think that is on here that isn't on the call tonight is John Elwell. John is taking charge of our volunteer efforts as well as some of our in-kind donation efforts as Kathleen goes out to enjoy the growth of her own family. So that's a terrific thing for her to go and do. We look forward to seeing the wonderful pictures that come from that, but certainly look forward to having her back. And Marnie's contact information is here as well. So I think that's all we have for everyone. We really do appreciate, again, you coming out. I've kept you 5 minutes beyond the time that I was supposed to keep you, so forgive me for that. Just wanted to say, again, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything that you've done to make our mission possible. And we look forward to continued awesome success in the coming years.